I'm making this little video today because I read a book called Your Slides Suck by David Henson. In the past, we've had some great slide decks and we've had some mediocre slide decks. And I'd like us to think about what David Henson is suggesting in making really good slide decks. Here's some thoughts that he has. That PowerPoint deck should not be your presentation. That the presentation should be you, and that the purpose of the PowerPoint behind you is that it's supposed to reinforce, illustrate, clarify, or explain your presentation. You should avoid using bulleted lists. He says as soon as you put up a bulleted list, people stop listening to you and start reading. He says it's also okay to black out your PowerPoint during your presentation if you just want to talk or if you have an activity. You don't have to leave it up on the screen. The slides, he says, should be as simple as possible, not complicated. They should be readable. We shouldn't be taking pictures of pages off the internet and just posting them and saying, I know you really can't read this, but don't do it. Don't put them up. We should use pictures and graphics as much as possible to illustrate points. You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, use just a few words and more pictures and graphics. And if you have something that's small, like a page from a workbook or something like that, make a handout or put it in this year's workbook and refer to it in the workbook so they can look at it up close and not just be frustrated that there's something on the screen that they can't read. And lastly, you can put up slides that maybe help illustrate a story that you're telling to make a point. To that end, I put together a PowerPoint that I think reflects what David Henson has suggested, and I'm just going to run through it quickly to try to illustrate some of the pictures I saw in his book. This is the opening slide for the second session on Monday on leadership. Notice it's not in the same format as a regular opening slide might be with a big heading and a subtitle. There's a picture to illustrate a point. It's about leadership, and the points under it are what we're going to cover today or during that session, but they're not in a bulleted format. The next topic we're going to talk about is why, and you can see the why is there, and again, significant leaders who shared passion, purpose, and drive as part of that discussion. We're going to talk about the 6 E's. What is it that great leaders do? We're not talking about their characteristics. We're talking about what they do, and this slide is just to set that discussion up. The next one is the 6 E's that Leanne's going to cover during the session, and so those come in not as bulleted points, but the whole time there's a strong leader up there who did these things, and so as they come in, then she will talk about each one, but they're not in a bulleted point. The next topic is going to be on delegation. You can't do it alone, so I tried to come up with a slide that illustrated how overwhelming sometimes things can be if we try to do it all. Again, under communication, the different forms of communication are there just to illustrate as Leanne talks about it. Time for a break. Try to put in a little humor. Ha ha ha. Gary Larson cartoon. We're going on to education and training. This is just to set it up and set the stage for that. And then I've got a slide that I want to illustrate the point. So I put out a target. Why are we educating? Who do we educate? And so forth. You can see that those come in, not in a bulleted way, but in a way that I hope reinforces or clarifies what I'm going to talk about. And then lastly, the slide deck is not complete, but Tanya is going to talk about organization. So we have a simple slide, hopefully somewhat humorous, that will be used. And so as we build this slide deck out, that's the purpose of the slide deck, is to keep it simple, to illustrate, to reinforce, clarify, or explain. I hope that makes sense. This list that I've just talked from is in the faculty resources folder on the Dropbox, and it's called Your Slides Suck. Thank you.